Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Now, in this show, we're going to be examining why understanding the Consumer Rights Act, or CRA, is crucial for every car dealer, plus how it can make life an awful lot easier. Joining me to unpick all of this is Oodle Car Finance's Chief Commercial Officer, Kira Raisin, and Head of Intermediary Oversight at Oodle, Chelsea Anderson. Hello, both.
Hi, James.
Hi,
Thanks
James.
for having us.
Yeah,
Wow,
thanks
it's
very much for
lovely
having
for you
us.
to come on. And I know this is a huge topic, so it's really great that you're able to come on and talk more about this. Kira, let me turn to you first. Now, like I've said, it is a huge topic, and many dealers will already know what the CRA is, and they will have adapted their businesses to it. But just as a bit of an overview, what is it, and why is it so important?
Yeah, no, thanks, James. So I think to answer that, I would say that, everybody in the motor industry really does try hard to do a really great job and offer customers such an outstanding experience and help them drive away in that car that's suitable for them. But the fact is, we work in a second-hand car market, a used car market, so things can go wrong and it's no one's fault. So we may have dealers that sell a car in excellent condition, it's got low mileage, they've done all the necessary checks, but it can develop a problem a couple of months after they've sold it. And that's when the Consumer Rights Act comes in. So when things like that happen, the Act is there to set out what a car buyer can expect from our dealers. But on the other side of that is the importance of the Consumer Rights Act is it can help dealers stay on the right side of what they need to do to help save them time and energy. It can protect their business and it can enable them to, I suppose, understand if a customer's request is disproportionate compared to, what we understand the Act to set out. And it helps then dealers work with intermediaries such as Oodle to try and create a smooth and enjoyable, car buying experience at all for all our customers.
Now there is something. There is the concept of satisfactory quality, isn't there, under the Consumer Rights Act when selling a car? Can you just explain that concept?
Yeah, sure. So before you sell a second-hand car, so before a dealer sells a car, there are 4 key things to be made aware of under the Consumer Rights Act. So that's that the car's of satisfactory quality, it's fit for purpose, and it matches any description that they provide to the customer, and also that they have the right to sell the vehicle. So essentially, satisfactory quality under the Consumer Rights Act means the car should meet standards a reasonable person would expect. So it takes into account a number of factors. So that's age, the value, the worth of the vehicle, the history. So that includes any mileage and service history, the intended use, any durability, safety, description, and appearance and finish. So an example of this is an older car with higher mileage will not be expected to be as good as a newer car. So that's just a fact. So it should be that that older car still is fit for purpose on the road and the condition reflects the age and the price. So there's certain things to be aware of. So a dealer would be liable for any faults present at the time of sale. So even if the issue could surface later, so for example, like a worn handbrake cable. So they are responsible for any public statements about the car, any features. So for instance, if they claim that the car has Bluetooth and it doesn't work as expected, the car might not be considered satisfactory quality. So there are certain situations where the dealer wouldn't be liable for things. So that would be faults due to normal wear and tear of the vehicle, misuse or any accidental damage by the customer, and any faults that are fully disclosed before the purchase. So they're mainly cosmetic defects.
Well, let's just stick with that for a second. So, I mean, what factors should a dealer consider to ensure a car is of satisfactory quality? And secondly, how does the CRA address faults that develop after a car is sold? I mean, for example, issues with customers' expectations for fit for purpose.
Yeah. So the dealer needs to ensure that the car that they're selling is fit for purpose under the Consumer Rights Act. So that means it needs to be fit for purpose for that customer's intended use. So it needs to be an appropriate level of comfort, ease, and reliability for that customer that a reasonable person would expect. So basically a car that's not always breaking down, which is always breaking down, is not fit for purpose. So generally, we know that a car's intended use is for driving a customer from one place to another. So if a customer might want that vehicle for another purpose, for example, towing a caravan, it might the dealer needs to make that clear at the time of sale. So that example is if the customer needs that vehicle for towing a caravan, they tell you the weight the car will have to tow. Essentially, you need to ensure that car is capable of doing that. And if it's not powerful enough, then it's not fit for purpose for that intended use.
Yeah, and it's you can just tell it's putting an awful lot more on the onus of the dealer, isn't it? It's not just the customer; it's the dealer as
Absolutely.
well. Right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what should dealers be aware of regarding the right to sell a vehicle under the CRA?
Yeah. So before a dealer sells any car, they need to make sure that they have the right to sell it. So that essentially means checking the car isn't subject to any existing finance agreement, for example, a hire purchase agreement. So if they don't do that, they would be in breach of the contract and the customer would be able to reject the car and claim a full refund. So for example, if they buy a car in as a part exchange, which has an outstanding hire purchase agreement on it, they then sell this car to a new customer. They wouldn't have acquired good title of the car, so essentially legal ownership. So that customer could be entitled to exercise their right to reject and for the vehicle and claim a full refund.
Yeah. So let's just dive into that just a little bit more then. So, I mean, how does the CRA protect customers in the first 30 days after buying a car, and just explain a little bit more about this short-term right to reject?
Yeah, I could pick that one up, Chelsea. So the two key points within the Consumer Rights Act is what happens if a fault appears in the first 30 days, what happens after that. So, James, in answer to your question, this first 30 days brings in what's called that short-term right to reject. So that means if the dealer has sold a car that doesn't meet the requirements that they have summarised relating to the quality, the fitness for purpose, the description, the right to sell, like Chelsea's described, that may mean that they're in breach of contract and the customer can seek a remedy. So if it fails to meet any of those requirements within the first 30 days, the customer does have a right to reject that vehicle and request a full refund. And some of the things to be aware of on that short term right to reject is that the customer has to show that there is a fault present and likely that this was present at the time of delivery because this has happened within the first 30 days. If the customer does exercise that right and asks for a full refund, the dealer does have to provide a refund within 14 days. They can suggest other remedies, such as a repair or a discount on the vehicle, but the customer doesn't have to accept that. So if the customer is adamant that they want a refund, that fault is present at the point of sale within the first 30 days, they do have a right to a full refund. That then brings in how does that vehicle get returned to the dealership? So some dealerships put in their contract that the responsibility is on the customer to return the car to the premises. Some dealerships do not have that in their contract, and it may be that the customer just has to notify the dealership that the car is now available for collection, and it's up to the dealership to go and collect that vehicle. Now, what can happen during these first 30 days is the customer can say, okay, it's a minor fault. I'm really happy with my vehicle. I would rather that you repair that fault. And they do have within that 30-day period, or let's say the customer's at 20 days into having purchased the vehicle, there can be another 7 days added onto that 30-day period to give the dealership time to actually make that repair, or maybe swap the customer into another vehicle if they want it to be replaced with something else. So that's what happens within those first 30 days.
Yeah. You mentioned contracts there. I mean, what are some examples of unlawful statements or terms that cannot be used in sales contracts?
Yeah.
I'm
So,
happy
yeah, do
that
you
one
want to pick
here.
that up, Chelsea? Yeah.
Yeah. So there are certain statements that would be unlawful, even if they do say to the customer that it doesn't affect their statutory rights. So there's certain descriptions that they shouldn't really use. So things like sold as seen, roadworthy, trade sale only, no refund, spare or repair or sold as scrap. So they're also unlawful terms that if you require the customer to confirm what you've said about the car's mileage or any defects, that they've examined the car and had any faults pointed out to them. Including terms like that in a contract could lead to the customer to think that they've actually signed away their rights if the car does develop a fault.
Yeah, okay. And let's just talk a bit about the finance agreements then. So, I mean, how does the CRA, how does it impact a dealer's obligations when they're selling a car through a finance agreement?
Yeah, no, that's a really important question. So, if the dealership is supplying a car to a customer through a finance agreement, the customer's legal rights and all the remedies that we've discussed, they are against that finance provider and they're not against the dealer. But the dealer does have some responsibilities to keep that lender informed and work with the dealer on the resolution for the customer. So examples might be if the customer initially gives a written notice of cancellation to the dealer that they want to reject that vehicle within the first 30 days, the dealership needs to inform the lender that they've received that. Any resolution of repairs or replacement of a vehicle, again, the dealership needs to be in close contact with their finance provider to keep them fully up to speed with what's happening with that customer. So it's like three people: the customer, the dealership, and the finance provider working together to make sure we all comply with the Consumer Rights Act. We support that customer with the outcome that they're seeking, but the dealership keeps that finance provider fully informed and works with us on what that necessary resolution looks like.
And how do warranties and guarantees? I mean, how do these relate to a customer's rights under the CRA?
Yeah, so any warranty or guarantee that they sell to the customer or even provide to the customer for free is in addition to their legal rights under the Consumer Rights Act. So it's not an alternative for those legal rights. So essentially that means that you can't refuse to deal with a customer's complaint about a fault or a defect for the car on the grounds that their guarantee or their warranty is expired, or that the fault that they're experiencing is specifically excluded from that warranty or guarantee that they've taken out.
And can a dealer refuse to address a customer's complaint if, for instance, the warranty is expired or the fault, for example, is excluded from the warranty?
No. So, like I've said previously, that it's not an alternative for the customer's legal rights, an additional warranty or product they provide to the customer. So the Consumer Rights Act still stands. They still have those legal rights regardless of any warranty or guarantee taken out.
We've spoken quite a lot there about the sort of the minute detail of all of this, but quite a broad question here. How can understanding the CRA help dealers protect their business and of course manage customer expectations?
Yeah, no, I can pick this one up. It's a great question, and I think first and foremost it starts with really understanding what that Consumer Rights Act states. So, like we said at the beginning, James, it's a big topic. There's lots of conversations around it. There's lots of anecdotes, myths, legends, examples of how it works. But I think every dealership taking the time to actually understand and read, whether it's a guide that Oodle can provide to break this down into bite-sized manageable understanding, or refer to the actual Consumer Rights Act itself. Once you understand that it's designed to, yes, give the customer the options that are available should they have a fault with their vehicle, but it also is protection for dealers in terms of saving them time and energy, so they understand what happens within the first 30 days, after 30 days, after 6 months, even up to 5 years for Scottish dealers, 6 years for the remainder of the dealers, in terms of when the customer might raise a complaint. So if they understand the Act, they can understand when a customer's request is disproportionate. Chelsea's outlined there the 4 things that come under the Consumer Rights Act. But what we see is lots of adjudication, say, from the Financial Ombudsman around these are used vehicles. They have got higher mileage, perhaps. They have got reasonable wear and tear. So I think the more that a dealership understands what those 4 categories are, what they can do to make sure that they've done all their preliminary checks on that vehicle, but that when something goes wrong, even if it's no one's fault, that they know how to address that with the customer. Does the customer want to reject the vehicle? Would they like the dealership to try and repair it? Can they source a replacement for them? How can the lender support with the liaison over that complaint with the customer? And I just think overall is using that Consumer Rights Act to, yes, support our customers, but also support dealerships to make sure that they make as smooth and as easy a car buying experience for customers as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's just an appreciation that things do go wrong, doesn't it? Don't they? And it's
Yeah.
how you deal with that, both legally, but also from a customer service point of view. So, and there's a lot there to understand and to unpick. But of course, there are lots of resources. I know you Oodle gives makes a lot of resources available to dealers as well. So so yes, fantastic. Well, some really useful, interesting points there. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.